Ethan Collins never imagined his laughter would trigger an interstellar crisis. In 2154, during Earth's first official diplomatic meeting with the Adocian Confederation, his inadvertent chuckle sent alien representatives fleeing in terror, upending years of careful preparation for this historic encounter. The conference room, a sterile environment designed to accommodate various species, now stood empty, save for Ethan and his bewildered human colleagues. Confusion etched their faces as they stared at the vacant seats where the Adocians had sat moments before. The air still hummed with the lingering tension of the aborted negotiations. "What just happened?" Ethan asked, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. The answer came swiftly and unexpectedly. A holographic message flickered to life above the central table. Hector, the lead Adocian diplomat, appeared. His tentacles writhed in agitation as he spoke. "Humans, explain the sonic weapon you deployed against us. This act of aggression will not go unanswered." Ethan's mind raced. Sonic weapon? He replayed the events in his head. The negotiations had been tense, the Adocians pushing for concessions Earth wasn't prepared to give. In a moment of stress, he'd let out a nervous laugh. That's when everything went sideways. Within hours, Earth's government mobilized. Top neurologists and xenobiologists were summoned to study the effect of human laughter on alien physiology. Their findings were as fascinating as they were alarming. The neural patterns generated by human laughter resonated at a frequency that disrupted the advanced synaptic structures of evolved alien brains, inducing panic and cognitive dissonance. The implications were staggering. Laughter, a fundamental aspect of human culture and communication, was a potential weapon against advanced alien civilizations. The military, quick to recognize the strategic implications, launched a classified research program to explore weaponizing laughter. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself at the center of a diplomatic maelstrom. Tasked with leading a specialized team, he faced the daunting challenge of developing new protocols for interspecies communication that minimized the risk of accidental laughter. It was a task that seemed almost comically impossible. As Ethan and his team worked tirelessly, the situation on Earth grew tense. Reports surfaced of rogue human groups deliberately using laughter to terrorize alien communities on Earth and in space colonies. The United Earth government implemented strict regulations on public displays of humor in areas frequented by extraterrestrials, a move that sparked controversy and resistance among the human population. The team's research expanded beyond immediate damage control. They delved into the evolutionary reasons behind the alien fear response to laughter, theorizing it might be connected to a traumatic event in their species' history. This line of inquiry opened up new avenues for understanding and potentially resolving the crisis. As diplomatic tensions escalated, Ethan's team explored various solutions. They considered developing neural dampeners for aliens, creating laughter suppression techniques for humans, and sought alternative forms of expression that could convey humor without triggering the fear response. Time was running out. The Adocians threatened to sever all ties with Earth, a move that could isolate humanity in the galactic community. Ethan knew the upcoming meeting with Hector was their last chance to salvage the situation. Standing before a mirror, Ethan practiced maintaining a neutral expression. The weight of human-alien relations rested on his ability to control a reflex as natural as breathing. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the high-stakes negotiation that awaited him. As he stepped out of his quarters, Ethan couldn't help but appreciate the irony. In a universe full of advanced technologies and alien wonders, it was the simple act of human laughter that now held the power to shape the cosmic order. As Ethan stepped into the conference room, his heart raced. Hector's holographic form hovered above the table, tentacles now still but poised for action. The Adocian's compound eyes fixed on Ethan, who forced his face into a mask of neutrality. "Ambassador Hector," Ethan began, his voice steady despite the tension, "we assure you that no weapon was deployed. What you experienced was an involuntary human response called laughter." Hector's tentacles twitched. "Explain this. Laughter." For the next hour, Ethan carefully outlined the concept of human humor and its physiological manifestations. He watched Ektor's reactions closely, noting every subtle shift in the alien's posture. As the meeting concluded, Ektor's hologram flickered. "We will consider your explanation. Further study is required." The hologram vanished, leaving Ethan and his team in tense silence. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a start. In the weeks that followed, Ethan's team worked tirelessly to develop new communication protocols. But as they toiled in their labs, a different kind of movement was brewing in the streets of Earth's cities. The first reports of underground comedy clubs came as a surprise. Despite the United Earth government's regulations, humans found ways to gather and indulge in laughter. Ethan watched news footage of a raid on one such club, dubbed the Chuckle Bunker. Patrons scattered as HCU officers stormed the premises, their faces grim behind riot shields. What shocked Ethan most was the presence of aliens in the crowd. A Xyloxian, its crystalline structure glittering under the club's lights, darted between fleeing humans. An Arcturian, normally stoic, stumbled out with tears of mirth streaming down its face. "They're attracted to it," Dr. Lydia Hall observed, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Despite the fear response, there's a fascination." Ethan nodded, his mind racing with the implications. "We need to understand why." Their research took on new urgency as reports of the Laughing Legion began to surface. Ethan watched in horror as footage of their first major attack played on every news channel. The Adosian embassy on Luna, a graceful structure of swirling metal, now bore ugly scorch marks. Survivors huddled in shock blankets, their tentacles wrapped tightly around themselves. Jack Howler's face dominated the screens, his eyes wild with fervor. "Humans have cowered in fear of aliens for too long," he shouted into the camera. "It's time we showed them our power." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. This was exactly the kind of escalation they'd feared. The formation of the Humor Containment Unit brought new challenges. Major Marcus Stern, a man whose face seemed permanently set in a scowl, implemented strict measures across Earth and its colonies. Ethan found himself navigating a minefield of regulations as he continued his work. One afternoon, as Ethan walked through a public square, he saw the effects of Stern's policies firsthand. A child's laughter rang out, clear and bright, only to be quickly muffled. Ethan turned to see the child's mother, her hand clamped over the boy's mouth, looking around fearfully. Above them, a device emitted a soft hum, a joy suppressor, dampening any potential outbursts of mirth. In his lab, Dr. Hall's breakthrough brought a glimmer of hope. Ethan leaned over her shoulder, studying the complex neural scans on her screen. "See here," Lydia pointed to a pulsing area of an alien brain. "The frequency of human laughter triggers this region, which corresponds to ancient fear responses. It's like their brains are interpreting laughter as a predator's roar." Ethan's mind raced with the possibilities. If we could modulate that frequency— "Exactly," Lydia nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. "A neural harmonizer could allow aliens to experience human laughter without fear." Their proposal for the neural harmonizer met with fierce opposition. In a tense meeting with Earth's Security Council, Ethan found himself face-to-face with Major Stern. "You want to manipulate alien brain patterns?" Stern's voice dripped with skepticism. "The risk is too great. One malfunction and we could have a planet-wide panic." Ethan stood his ground. "The risk of doing nothing is greater. We can't keep suppressing a fundamental aspect of human nature." As they argued, news broke of the Stoic solidarity movement. Ethan watched in amazement as an Adosian stood before a laughing human crowd, its tentacles relaxed, its posture calm. "The Unmoved," the newscaster explained, "leader of a group of aliens who have trained themselves to withstand human laughter." This development added a new layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Ethan found himself caught between competing factions, each with their own agenda for addressing the laughter crisis. The diplomatic summit on Mars was meant to be a turning point. Ethan stood in the grand hall of the Olympus Mons Conference Center, surrounded by delegates from a dozen alien races. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Then chaos erupted. A group of humans burst into the room, their faces contorted in exaggerated laughter. Panic spread like wildfire among the alien delegates. Ethan saw an Arcturian ambassador collapse, its normally stoic features twisted in terror. In the midst of the mayhem, Ethan spotted a familiar face. Jack Howler, leader of the Laughing Legion, stood at the center of the attacking group. Their eyes met across the room. Ethan moved without thinking. He launched himself at Howler, tackling the man to the ground. They grappled, Howler's face inches from Ethan's, twisted in a manic grin. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan grunted, struggling to pin Howler down. Howler's eyes gleamed with a fervent light. "To show them our strength, to make them fear us as we once feared them." Security forces swarmed in, separating the two men. As they led Howler away in restraints, Ethan caught a glimpse of the devastation around him. The summit was in ruins, years of careful diplomacy undone in minutes. In the aftermath, Ethan stood before the United Earth government's emergency session. The faces of the council members were grim as they delivered their ultimatum. 3 months, Mr. Collins, the council chair said, her voice heavy with the weight of her words. You have 3 months to find a solution, or Earth faces quarantine from the galactic community. Ethan left the chamber, his mind already racing with plans. He had 3 months to save human-alien relations, to find a way for laughter to bridge the gap between species rather than widen it. As he stepped out into the sunlight, Ethan caught sight of an alien family walking down the street, their movements careful and controlled in the human-dominated space. A human child nearby let out a small giggle, quickly stifled by her parents. The alien family flinched but kept walking. Ethan watched this small interaction, a microcosm of the larger crisis. In that moment, he knew that the solution wouldn't just be technological. It would require understanding, adaptation, and perhaps a new definition of what it meant to be part of a galactic community. With rekindled willpower, Ethan set off towards his lab. The clock was ticking, and the fate of human-alien relations hung in the balance. The power of laughter, once taken for granted, now held the key to humanity's future among the stars. Ethan's lab hummed with activity as the 3-month deadline loomed. Holographic displays flickered with complex neural patterns while Dr. Lydia Hall manipulated a series of controls, her brow furrowed in concentration. We're close, Lydia murmured, not looking up from her work. The harmonizer's frequency modulation is nearly stable. Ethan nodded, studying the readouts. The neural harmonizer represented their best hope for allowing aliens to experience human laughter without fear. He opened his mouth to respond when a piercing alarm cut through the air. Red lights flashed as the lab's security system engaged. Ethan's hand flew to the emergency comm unit on his wrist. Security breach in Sector 7, a robotic voice announced. Unknown intruders detected. Ethan and Lydia exchanged alarmed glances. Sector 7 housed their most sensitive research data. Lock down the prototypes, Ethan ordered, already moving towards the exit. I'll check it out. As Ethan raced down the corridor, he heard the sound of struggle ahead. Rounding a corner, he skidded to a halt at the site before him. A group of aliens, Adosians, Arcturians, and others he couldn't immediately identify, grappled with the facility's security forces. At their center stood a tall, imposing Adosian whose tentacles moved with eerie grace. The unmoved, Ethan breathed, recognizing the leader of the stoic solidarity movement from news reports. The unmoved's compound eyes fixed on Ethan. Ah, Mr. Collins, we meet at last. Security officers moved to restrain the intruders, but the unmoved raised a tentacle. We are not here to fight. We seek only to prevent a grave mistake. Ethan's mind raced. How had they infiltrated the facility? What did they know about the harmonizer? He kept his voice level as he addressed the alien leader. You have my attention, but breaking into a secure facility isn't the best way to start a dialogue. The unmoved's tentacles rippled in what Ethan recognized as an Edosian gesture of acknowledgement. Desperate times call for desperate measures, Mr. Collins. Your neural harmonizer project threatens to widen the gap between our species, not close it. Ethan's eyes narrowed. How do you know about... His words died in his throat as the unmoved reached up and removed what Ethan now realized was an elaborate mask. The face beneath was instantly recognizable. "Ambassador Ector!" Ethan gasped. The Adosian diplomat's features were unmistakable, though his posture and bearing were dramatically different from their last encounter. "Yes, Mr. Collins, I am the unmoved." Ector's voice was calm, almost serene. "I have overcome my fear of laughter through mental discipline and training, and I believe this is the true path forward for interspecies harmony." Ethan's mind whirled with implications. The diplomat who had nearly sparked an interstellar incident was now leading a movement to bridge the gap between species. But why oppose the harmonizer? Before Ethan could formulate a response, the facility's main view screen flickered to life. Major Marcus Stern's scowling face filled the frame. "Collins, what's the situation down there?" Stern barked. His eyes widened as he took in the scene. "Is that the Stoic Solidarity cell? Detain them immediately." Ethan held up a hand, both to Stern and the security officers poised to act. "Wait, I think we need to hear them out." Stern's face reddened. "This is not a negotiation, Collins. These are dangerous extremists." "With all due respect, Major," Ethan interrupted, "Ambassador Ector is a recognized diplomat. We owe him the courtesy of a hearing." Stern's teeth clenched, but he gave a curt nod. 5 minutes, then I want them in custody." As the view screen went dark, Ethan turned back to Ector. "You have some explaining to do, Ambassador, starting with how you went from cowering at human laughter to leading a resistance movement." Ector's tentacles moved in a complex pattern that Ethan couldn't quite interpret. "After our first encounter, I was consumed by shame. How could I, a seasoned diplomat, be so undone by a simple human reflex? I sought answers, Mr. Collins, and in my search, I discovered the Stoic Solidarity movement." The Adosian's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with intensity. "Through rigorous mental training, I learned to master my fear, to see human laughter not as a threat, but as a fascinating aspect of your species. And I realized that true understanding between our peoples can only come through mutual effort and adaptation." Ethan frowned. "But isn't that exactly what the neural harmonizer aims to do? To allow aliens to experience human laughter without fear?" Ector's tentacles twisted in what Ethan now recognized as a gesture of negation. "Your harmonizer is a shortcut, Mr. Collins, a technological crutch that denies both humans and aliens the opportunity for genuine growth and understanding. It may ease tensions in the short term, but it will ultimately create a deeper divide." The weight of Ector's words settled over Ethan. He had been so focused on finding a quick solution to the crisis that he hadn't fully considered the long-term implications of the Harmonizer project. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. The main view screen flickered back to life, this time showing chaotic scenes from cities around the world. "Collins!" Major Stern's voice crackled over the comm. "The situation has escalated. Jack Howler has escaped custody and hijacked a broadcast satellite. He's transmitting... Oh, God!" The screen split to show multiple feeds. In each one, humans were doubled over in uncontrollable laughter. Alien bystanders recoiled in terror, some collapsing where they stood. "It's a planet-wide laughter outbreak," Stern growled. "The HCU is overwhelmed. We need that harmonizer operational now." Ethan's gaze darted between the screens showing global chaos and Ector's steady gaze. The fate of human-alien relations hung in the balance, and he found himself at the crossroads of two competing philosophies. "Mr. Collins," Ector said softly, his voice barely audible over the blaring alarms, "the choice you make now will shape the future of our species' interactions for generations to come." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing. The easy path lay with the harmonizer, a quick fix to a complex problem. But Ector's words nagged at him, hinting at a more challenging but potentially more rewarding solution. As the alarms continued to wail and the screens flickered with scenes of escalating chaos, Ethan made his decision. He tapped his comm unit. Major Stern, this is Collins. I have a proposal. Plan. Ethan's voice was steady, his decision made. We're going to combine our approaches. The harmonizer will be our short-term solution, but we'll integrate Ector's stoic solidarity training as well. Major Stern's face contorted in confusion. Collins, what are you? A deafening explosion rocked the facility, cutting off Stern's transmission. Alarms blared even louder as the emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the corridor in an eerie red glow. We're under attack, a security officer shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Ethan's mind raced. It's Howler, he said, turning to Ector. He must have planned this all along. Before anyone could react, the main view screen flickered back to life. Jack Howler's face filled the frame, his eyes wild with manic glee. Citizens of Earth and our esteemed alien guests, Howler's voice boomed through the facility's speakers. The time has come for humanity to reclaim its rightful place in the galaxy. The screen split, showing multiple feeds from around the world. Ethan watched in horror as people doubled over in uncontrollable laughter, their faces contorted in rictus grins. Alien bystanders recoiled in terror, some collapsing where they stood. My God, Lydia breathed, joining Ethan and Ector in the corridor. He's hijacked the global media network. Ethan's comm unit crackled to life. Collins! Major Stern's voice was strained. Howler and the Laughing Legion have taken control of the UEG communications hub in Geneva. We're locked out of all channels. The implications hit Ethan like a physical blow. With control of the global media network, Howler could broadcast laughter across the entire planet. The consequences would be catastrophic. We need to move, Ethan said, his mind already formulating a plan. Lydia, how close are we to a working prototype of the harmonizer? We have a functional model, but it's not ready for mass production, Lydia replied, and its range is limited. Ector's tentacles rippled with agitation. Mr. Collins, even if your device works, it cannot protect everyone. We must address the root of the problem. Ethan nodded, his expression grim. You're right. We need a two-pronged approach. He tapped his comm unit. Major Stern, I need you to gather every available HCU agent. We're going after Howler. Negative, Collins, Stern barked. I've just received word from the Adosian Confederation. They're mobilizing their fleet. We have 48 hours before they quarantine the entire solar system. The weight of the situation settled over the group. Ethan's mind raced, considering and discarding options at lightning speed. All right, here's the plan, he said, his voice tight with urgency. Lydia, take the harmonizer prototype and set up a safe zone in the city center. Coordinate with local authorities to gather as many aliens there as possible. Lydia nodded, already moving towards the lab. Ector, Ethan continued, turning to the Adosian. I need you and your stoic solidarity members to spread out across the city. Use your techniques to help aliens resist the effects of laughter. It's not a permanent solution, but it might buy us some time. Ector's compound eyes shimmered with perseverance. We will do our part, Mr. Collins. Ethan tapped his comm unit again. Major Stern, I'm assembling a strike team to take down Howler. We'll need transport to Geneva and all the intel you can give us on the communications hub. I'm sending a stealth dropship to your location now, Stern replied. But Collins, there's something else you should know. Lieutenant Blackwood has uncovered evidence suggesting the Laughing Legion had inside help from someone in the UEG. Ethan's blood ran cold. A traitor within the government itself? The situation was even more dire than he'd realized. Understood, Major. We'll be ready. As Ethan moved to gather his team, Ector placed a tentacle on his shoulder. Mr. Collins, I request to join your strike team. My abilities may prove useful in confronting Howler. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, Ambassador, but stay close. We're heading into the Lion's Den. Within the hour, Ethan's strike team was airborne, racing towards Geneva in a sleek black dropship. The cabin was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the occasional burst of chatter from the pilot's comm. Ethan studied the faces of his team. Lieutenant Sarah Blackwood, her expression hard as she checked her weapon for the third time. Dr. Lydia Hall, looking out of place in tactical gear, but her eyes burning with grit. Hector, his tentacles perfectly still in a display of Adosian calm, and a handful of HCU agents, their faces grim beneath their helmets. As they approached Geneva, the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Sir, you need to see this." The dropship's main screen lit up, showing a bird's-eye view of the city. Even from this height, Ethan could see the chaos unfolding in the streets. Crowds of humans stumbled about, doubled over with laughter, while pockets of aliens huddled in terror. "My God," Sarah whispered. "It's spreading faster than we thought." Ethan's face hardened. "Take us in, pilot. We need to end this now." The dropship descended towards the UEG communications hub, a massive structure of glass and steel in the heart of Geneva. As they neared the building, Ethan could see signs of the Laughing Legion's presence, barricades at the entrances, armed guards patrolling the perimeter. "We'll never get in through the front," Sarah said, her tactical mind already at work. "There has to be another way." Hector's tentacles rippled thoughtfully. "Perhaps not through, but over?" He gestured towards the building's roof. Ethan nodded. "Good thinking. Pilot, can you get us to the roof?" "Affirmative, sir. But it'll be hot. They've got anti-aircraft defenses." "Do it," Ethan ordered. The dropship banked sharply, accelerating towards the communications hub. Alarms blared as the Laughing Legion's defenses locked onto them. The pilot's hands flew over the controls, the ship jinking and weaving through a hail of energy bolts. "Brace for impact!" the pilot shouted. The dropship shuddered as a bolt grazed its hull. Ethan gripped his seat, squeezing hard. With a bone-jarring thud, the ship landed on the roof of the communications hub. "Go, go, go!" Ethan shouted, leading his team out of the ship. As they sprinted across the roof, the door to the stairwell burst open. A group of Laughing Legion soldiers poured out, their faces twisted in manic grins. "Take cover!" Sarah yelled, diving behind an air conditioning unit. The air filled with the sound of weapons fire and laughter. The Laughing Legion soldiers cackled as they advanced, the sound sending shivers down Ethan's spine. "Hector," Ethan called out, "can you do anything about their laughter?" The Adosian's tentacles whipped through the air in complex patterns. A wave of calm seemed to emanate from him, washing over the rooftop. The laughter of the Laughing Legion soldiers faltered, their advance slowing. "Now!" Ethan shouted. "Take them down!" His team surged forward, quickly overwhelming the disoriented soldiers. As the last of the Laughing Legion fell, Ethan turned to the stairwell door. "This is it," he said, his voice tight with tension. "Howler's down there, and we've got less than 24 hours before the Adosians quarantine Earth. Let's finish this." As they descended into the heart of the communications hub, Ethan could hear the echoes of maniacal laughter bouncing off the walls. The sound grew louder with each step, a cacophony of mirth that seemed to tear at the very fabric of reality. They reached the main control room, its doors sealed shut. Sarah stepped forward, placing a small device on the lock. "Stand back," she warned. The door blew open with a thunderous crack, and Ethan's team surged into the room. They found Jack Howler standing before a massive array of screens, his arms spread wide as if embracing the chaos he had unleashed. "Ah, Collins," Howler said, turning to face them with a wide grin. "Come to join the party?" Ethan raised his weapon, his aim steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "It's over, Howler. Shut it down, now." Howler's laugh echoed through the control room, a sound of pure, unhinged joy. "Oh, Ethan, don't you see? This is just the beginning." As Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger, his eyes caught something on one of the screens behind Howler. The Adosian fleet, massive and imposing, had entered the solar system. The clock was ticking, and the fate of human-alien relations hung by a thread. Time seemed to slow as Ethan's finger hovered over the trigger. Suddenly, Howler's hand darted to his belt. "Not so fast, Collins!" A blinding flash erupted from a device on Howler's hip. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, stumbling backward. His team cried out in surprise and pain. When Ethan's vision cleared, he found his weapons display dark. "Comms are down!" Sarah shouted, tapping her earpiece frantically. Hector's tentacles writhed in distress. "The harmonizers, they're not functioning!" Howler's laughter echoed through the control room as he dove through a hidden panel in the wall. "Catch me if you can, Collins!" Ethan lunged forward, but the panel slid shut with a metallic clang. "Damn it!" A low hum filled the air as the room's massive screen flickered to life. Red numbers appeared, ticking down from 15 wank. "That can't be good," Lydia muttered, her eyes wide. Ethan's mind raced. "It's a countdown. Lydia, what are we looking at?" She hurried to a nearby console, fingers flying over the alien interface. Oh no, it's a broadcast system, massive scale. If this goes off, it'll blanket the entire solar system with laughter. "We need to shut it down," Ethan ordered. "How long will it take?" Lydia's face paled. I don't know. This technology, it's like nothing I've ever seen. The encryption is incredibly complex." A crackling voice came through their comms. "Collins, do you read me?" It was Major Stern, his tone urgent. "Major, what's happening out there?" "The Adosian fleet. They're activating some kind of energy field around Earth. Massive projectors are emerging from their ships." Ethan watched in horror as one of the screens showed a shimmering barrier forming in the upper atmosphere. "They're quarantining us," he realized aloud. "That's not all," Stern continued, his voice grim. "I've just received word from UEG officials. They've been supporting the Laughing Legion in secret." The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. "What? Why?" "They thought it would give humanity an edge in negotiations. Idiots." Stern's disgust was palpable. "I'm done playing by their rules. I'm coming to you, Collins. We'll end this together." As Stern signed off, the room began to shake. Outside, the sky lit up with swirling colors, auroras dancing across the Geneva skyline. "The quarantine field," Hector observed, his compound eyes reflecting the ethereal light. "It's interacting with your planet's magnetosphere." Lydia looked up from her work, worry etched on her face. "These electromagnetic disturbances are going to play havoc with global communications. It'll make containing this crisis even harder." Hector moved to join her at the console, his tentacles gesturing at the alien symbols. "This technology, it bears a striking resemblance to ancient Edosian artifacts." "What are you saying?" Ethan asked, a new worry gnawing at his gut. "I believe there may be a faction within my own civilization behind these events. The implications are troubling." Before Ethan could process this new information, Lydia let out a triumphant cry. "I've done it!" "Well, partly. I've managed to partially disable the broadcast system." "Can you shut it down completely?" Sarah asked, hope in her voice. Lydia's expression fell. "Not safely. There's a failsafe. If we force a complete shutdown, it could trigger an even larger laughter explosion." Ethan felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. Disable the system and risk catastrophe, or allow a reduced broadcast to continue. As he wrestled with the decision, Sarah's head snapped up. "We've got incoming aircraft, multiple signatures." Ethan tensed, preparing for another fight. But when the door burst open, it was Major Stern who strode in, flanked by HCU operatives. "Looks like we got here just in time," Stern said, surveying the room. "What's the situation?" As Ethan brought him up to speed, an idea began to form. It was risky, possibly insane, but it might be their only chance. "What if we use the broadcast system to our advantage?" he proposed. "We combine it with the neural harmonizer technology, transmit a modified frequency across the solar system." Lydia's eyes lit up with understanding. "A frequency designed to neutralize the fear response in aliens while preserving the positive aspects of human laughter?" "It's ambitious," Stern admitted, "but it might be our best shot. Let's do it." The team sprang into action. Lydia and Hector huddled over the console, combining their knowledge of human and Edosian neurobiology. Sarah and the HCU operatives secured the perimeter, while Stern coordinated with global defense systems. Ethan watched the countdown tick ever lower, acutely aware of the Adosian quarantine field nearing completion. The atmosphere crackled with tension, both literal and figurative. "We're ready!" Lydia called out, her finger poised over the activation key. Ethan took a deep breath. "Do it." A wave of energy pulsed from the base, spreading rapidly across the globe and into space. The modified laughter frequency passed through the nearly complete quarantine field, washing over Earth and beyond. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reports began flooding in from around the world. Aliens, previously paralyzed with fear, were beginning to relax. Some even showed signs of amusement. "It's working," Ethan breathed, hardly daring to believe it. The main screen flickered, showing the Adosian fleet. Their energy projectors powered down, the quarantine field dissipating. "We're receiving a transmission from the Adosian flagship," Sarah reported, her voice filled with awe. As the immediate crisis subsided, Ethan allowed himself a moment of relief. But he knew their work was far from finished. Jack Howler was still at large, and the long-term effects of their broadcast were unknown. "What now?" Lydia asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Ethan squared his shoulders, his gaze fixed on the screen showing a changed world. "Now we deal with the aftermath, and we find Howler." The control room hummed with renewed purpose as the team prepared to face the challenges ahead. The laughter crisis had been averted, but its echoes would resonate through the solar system for years to come. The control room buzzed with activity as Ethan and his team worked tirelessly to manage the aftermath of their improvised solution. Screens flickered with incoming reports from around the globe, each one confirming the success of their modified laughter broadcast. "We've got updates from New Delhi, São Paulo, and Tokyo," Sarah announced, her eyes scanning rapidly over the incoming data. "The aliens are responding positively. Some are even smiling?" Ethan allowed himself a moment of relief, but the weight of responsibility still pressed heavily on his shoulders. "Good work, everyone, but we're not done yet." As if on cue, a priority message flashed across the main screen. Major Stern's face appeared, his expression a mix of exhaustion and urgency. "Collins, we've got a situation. The UEG's involvement with the Laughing Legion has leaked to the press. It's chaos out there." Ethan's face hardened. "What do you need from us, Major?" "We're announcing a series of reforms and calling for new elections. But that's just damage control. I'm being appointed as interim head of a new interspecies relations department. I want your team to spearhead our global recovery efforts." The news hit Ethan like a shockwave. He glanced at his team, seeing perseverance reflected in their faces. "We're ready, sir. What's our first move?" Stern's image flickered as he leaned closer to the camera. "We're setting up Harmony Centers in major cities worldwide. Your job is to implement your neural harmonizer solution on a larger scale. Dr. Hall, you'll lead the scientific efforts. Collins, I need you to be the face of this operation. You'll be conducting a global tour, overseeing the center's establishment and operation." Lydia nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. "I can refine the technology, make it more efficient and accessible. We'll need to train staff, develop protocols." "Get it done," Stern ordered. "The fate of human-alien relations is in your hands. Stern out." As the screen went dark, Ethan turned to his team. "You heard the Major. Let's get to work." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan found himself constantly on the move, traveling from city to city. In New York, he stood before a crowd of humans and aliens, officially opening the first Harmony Center. "Today marks a new chapter in our shared history," he announced, his voice carrying across the diverse gathering. "These centers are more than just buildings. They're bridges between our cultures, spaces where we can learn to understand and appreciate our differences." Behind him, the sleek structure of the Harmony Center gleamed in the sunlight. Its design, a collaboration between human and alien architects, symbolized the unity they were striving to achieve. Inside the center, Ethan watched as the first group of aliens cautiously approached the neural harmonizer stations. Lydia, her lab coat pristine despite the long hours she'd been working, guided an Edosian to one of the devices. "Now you'll feel a slight tingling sensation," she explained, her voice calm and reassuring. "That's perfectly normal. Just relax and focus on the images on the screen." The Edosian's tentacles quivered slightly as the device activated. On the screen, a series of human expressions played out, each accompanied by a carefully modulated laugh track. As the session progressed, the alien's posture gradually relaxed, its compound eyes reflecting a mix of fascination and amusement. Across the room, human volunteers participated in their own training sessions, learning to modulate their expressions and laughter to avoid unintentionally frightening their alien neighbors. Ethan felt a surge of pride as he observed the scene. They were making progress, bridging the gap between species one laugh at a time. But not everyone shared his optimism. As he exited the center after a long day of overseeing operations, Ethan was confronted by a group of protesters. Their signs bore slogans like "Humans First" and "No Alien Influence." "You're selling out our species, Collins," one protester shouted, his face contorted with anger. "We don't need to change for them." Ethan tried to engage with the group, to explain the importance of their work, but his words were drowned out by their chants. As he was ushered into a waiting vehicle by security, he couldn't shake a sense of unease. This was just the beginning of their challenges. His concerns were validated when reports of sabotage began trickling in. Harmony centers in Chicago, Berlin, and Sydney had been targeted by extremist groups calling themselves the Silent Majority. Equipment was destroyed, staff threatened, and alien participants intimidated. During a secure video conference with his team, Ethan's frustration was palpable. "We need to step up security at all centers. Sarah, can you coordinate with local law enforcement?" Sarah nodded, her expression grim. "I'm on it. But Ethan, this goes beyond simple security measures. We're dealing with a coordinated ideological movement. They're pushing for complete separation of human and alien societies." As they discussed strategies to counter the growing threat, another face joined their call. It was Hector, his tentacles rippling with agitation. "My friends, I bring troubling news from the Edosian Confederation," he announced. "My investigation into the technology we found at the Laughing Legion's base has uncovered a secretive faction within our government. They call themselves the Evolutionary Purists." Ethan leaned closer to the screen. "What do they want?" Hector's compound eyes seemed to darken. They believe that exposure to human laughter is crucial for the next stage of Edosian evolution. This revelation has caused a significant political schism within our government. The implications of this news hung heavily over the team. As they processed this new complication, an alert flashed across their screens. A series of encrypted messages had been detected, originating from multiple points across the globe. Lydia's fingers flew over her keyboard as she worked to decode the transmissions. Her eyes widened as the messages revealed themselves. "It's Howler," she breathed. "He's resurfaced." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "What's he saying?" "He's hinting at a hidden stockpile of advanced alien technology," Lydia explained, her voice tight with tension. "Technology that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy." As the team digested this information, reports began flooding in from various intelligence agencies. The Silent Majority, the Evolutionary Purists, and several alien governments had all launched frantic searches for Howler's cache. Ethan's mind raced, connecting the dots. The laughter crisis, the advanced technology, the competing factions. It was all part of a larger puzzle, and they were the only ones with a chance of putting it together. "We need to find that stockpile," he declared, his voice filled with persistence. "It's the key to understanding the true origins of the laughter crisis and preventing future manipulation." Major Stern's face appeared on their screens, his expression grave. "I've just received orders from the UEG. Your team is being tasked with locating and securing Howler's technology cache. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands." Ethan nodded, already formulating a plan. "We'll need additional resources, sir, and someone with expertise in tracking elusive targets across multiple worlds." Stern's lips curved into a knowing smile. "I think I have just the person in mind. Ever heard of Captain Zara Vex? As Stern briefed them on their new asset, Ethan felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. They were about to embark on a mission that could reshape the future of human-alien relations throughout the galaxy. And somewhere out there, Jack Howler was waiting, holding the keys to secrets that could change everything. The search was on, and the stakes had never been higher. The team boarded their transport, the Martian landscape stretching out before them as they approached the abandoned mining facility. As they touched down, Ethan noticed recent modifications to the structure. Advanced alien technology had been seamlessly integrated into the facility's human architecture, creating an unsettling blend of the familiar and the unknown. "Stay alert," Ethan cautioned as they disembarked. "We don't know what we're walking into." The team made their way through the airlock, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. Lydia's eyes widened as she took in the sophisticated equipment lining the walls. "This tech, it's beyond anything I've seen before." A figure emerged from the shadows, causing the team to tense. "Welcome to our humble research facility," a woman's voice called out. She stepped into the light, revealing herself to be middle-aged with piercing green eyes and silver-streaked hair. "I'm Dr. Evelyn Reeves. I've been expecting you." Ethan's brow furrowed. "You have?" Dr. Reeves smiled enigmatically. "When you're in my line of work, you learn to anticipate interesting visitors. Please follow me." As they walked through the facility, Dr. Reeves explained her work. "We've made a breakthrough in understanding the connection between human laughter and alien neurobiology. It's not just a quirk of evolution, it's linked to something far more ancient and powerful." They entered a vast chamber dominated by a glowing artifact suspended in an energy field. Its surface was etched with intricate, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "This," Dr. Reeves said, her voice filled with reverence, "is what we've been studying, an artifact buried deep within the Martian crust, predating any known civilization." Hector's tentacles quivered with excitement. "Fascinating. The energy readings are off the charts." As the team examined the artifact, Ethan noticed something odd about the equipment surrounding it. "Some of this looks familiar," he muttered, tracing a hand over a console. Lydia peered over his shoulder, her eyes widening. "Ethan, this configuration, it's similar to what we found at the Laughing Legion base." Before Ethan could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Reeves rushed to a nearby terminal, her face paling. "We're under attack!" The main screen flickered to life, showing multiple ships descending on the facility. At their head was a familiar face, Jack Howler. "How did he find us?" Sarah exclaimed, drawing her weapon. Chaos erupted as Howler's forces breached the outer defenses. The sound of gunfire and alien weaponry filled the air, growing closer by the second. Dr. Reeves turned to the artifact, her hands flying over the control panel. "I can't let them have it," she muttered, her eyes wild. "Wait!" Ethan shouted, realizing her intent. "We don't know what activating it will do." But it was too late. Dr. Reeves slammed her hand down on the activation switch. The artifact pulsed, releasing a wave of energy that knocked them all off their feet. Ethan felt the wave pass through him, leaving behind a strange tingling sensation. As they struggled to their feet, the effects of the pulse became apparent. Alien members of Dr. Reeves's team were reacting in extreme ways, some cowering in terror, others convulsing with uncontrollable laughter. "What have you done?" Ethan demanded, steadying himself against a console. Dr. Reeves looked shocked by the intensity of the reaction. I didn't expect this. The artifact, it's amplifying the effects of human laughter exponentially." Reports flooded in from across Mars and beyond. The pulse had spread throughout the solar system, affecting aliens everywhere. Even humans were reporting increased sensitivity to alien emotions. In the midst of the chaos, Jack Howler and his silent majority extremists burst into the chamber. "Step away from the artifact!" Howler bellowed, his weapon trained on Ethan. Captain Zara Vex, who had been scouting ahead, suddenly appeared at Ethan's side. "There's a hidden control room," she whispered urgently. "It might be our only chance to shut this thing down." As the team engaged Howler's forces, Zara led Ethan and Hector to the hidden room. Inside, they found an alien interface unlike anything they'd ever seen. It requires a specific laughter frequency to activate, Hector observed, his tentacles waving as he examined the controls. Lydia's voice crackled over their comms. I can modify the neural harmonizer to generate the right frequency, but it'll take time. Time we don't have, Ethan growled, watching as Howler's forces pushed closer to their position. Hector turned to Ethan, his compound eyes reflecting the pulsing light of the artifact. I can channel your laughter through my stoic solidarity training. It's dangerous, but it might work. Ethan hesitated, knowing the risk to his friend. But as another explosion rocked the facility, he nodded grimly. Do it! As Lydia worked frantically to modify the neural harmonizer, Ethan prepared himself. He thought of every funny moment in his life, every joke that had ever made him laugh. And then, with Hector connected to the harmonizer, Ethan laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, amplified and modulated by the alien technology. Hector trembled, channeling the energy as pain racked his body. The artifact responded, its glow intensifying. Suddenly, Jack Howler burst into the control room, his face contorted with rage. You don't know what you're doing, Collins, he shouted, raising his weapon. In that critical moment, Ethan had to choose. He could stop laughing and confront Howler, or trust his team and continue the activation. With a silent prayer, he chose to laugh harder, pouring everything he had into it. The room filled with blinding light as the artifact fully activated. Strange symbols appeared on the walls, shifting and changing rapidly. A holographic message flickered into existence, showing glimpses of an ancient, advanced civilization. As the light faded, Ethan found himself standing in a transformed chamber. The artifact had changed, revealing its true nature as part of a vast galactic network. The holographic message spoke of a grand design, a system meant to bridge the emotional gaps between diverse species. Human laughter, it seemed, was a key component in unlocking this potential. As the team secured the artifact and prepared to return to Earth, Ethan knew their discovery would change everything. The power to reshape interstellar relations was now in their hands, along with the responsibility to use it wisely. With Howler in custody and the immediate crisis averted, Ethan gazed at the artifact, its soft glow a reminder of the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The true test was yet to come, navigating the complex political landscape of Earth and beyond, all while safeguarding the most powerful discovery in human history. As they boarded their transport, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The artifact's secrets were far from fully revealed, and somewhere out there, forces were already mobilizing to control its power. The stakes had never been higher, and the fate of interspecies cooperation hung in the balance. As they boarded their transport, Ethan's communicator chirped urgently. He glanced at the screen, his eyes widening as he read the message. "We've got a situation," he announced, his voice tight. "The artifact's energy pulse. It's having widespread effects across the solar system." Lydia leaned over, scanning the incoming data. "This is unprecedented," she muttered. "Alien populations experiencing intense mood swings, humans developing empathic abilities. It's chaos out there." The journey back to Earth was tense, filled with frantic communications and attempts to understand the full scope of the crisis. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, Ethan could see signs of the turmoil below: erratic flight patterns of civilian crafts, clusters of emergency vehicles, and pockets of unrest visible even from their altitude. They touched down at a heavily guarded landing pad adjacent to the United Nations headquarters in New York. A harried-looking official ushered them inside, barely pausing for introductions as he led them through the labyrinthine corridors. "The Security Council is waiting," the official explained, his words clipped and hurried. "Every major human nation and alien species with a presence on Earth has sent representatives. They're demanding answers." Ethan exchanged glances with his team as they approached the council chambers. The gravity of the situation greatly troubled on them all. As the doors swung open, they were met with a cacophony of voices, human and alien alike. The circular room was packed with additional holographic projections hovering above empty seats to accommodate the overflow of attendees. "Order!" The Secretary General's voice boomed over the noise. "We will have order!" The room fell into an uneasy silence as Ethan and his team took their places at the center. Ethan cleared his throat, acutely aware of the hundreds of eyes focused on him. "Distinguished representatives," he began, his voice steady despite the tension in his chest. "We stand at a critical juncture in our shared history. The artifact we've discovered on Mars—" A thunderous explosion cut him off mid-sentence. The room erupted into chaos as smoke billowed through shattered windows. Alarms blared, and security forces scrambled to protect the delegates. "It's Howler!" Zara shouted over the din, her enhanced senses already tracking the source of the attack. "He's here with a strike team!" Ethan's mind raced. How had Howler escaped custody? How had he managed to infiltrate the most secure building on Earth? There was no time to ponder these questions. "Zara, take point," Ethan ordered. "Coordinate with UN security to repel the attack. Lydia, Hector, we need to secure the artifact." As Zara sprinted off, barking orders to the security teams, Ethan led Lydia and Hector to the secure vault where the artifact was being held. The corridors were a maze of panicked staff and confused delegates. Ethan's newfound empathic abilities threatened to overwhelm him, bombarding him with the fear and confusion of those around him. They reached the vault just as a group of silent majority extremists were attempting to breach the door. Ethan and his team engaged them, their movements fluid and coordinated after months of working together. "Lydia, get that door open!" Ethan shouted as he grappled with an attacker. "We need to stabilize the artifact." Lydia's fingers flew over the keypad, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. The vault door slid open with a hiss, revealing the softly glowing artifact within. As they entered the vault, Hector's tentacles waved in agitation. "The energy emissions are fluctuating wildly," he reported. "If we don't stabilize it soon, the effects could become permanent, or worse." Lydia immediately set to work, her brow furrowed in concentration as she interfaced with the alien technology. "It's responding to emotional input," she muttered. "But it's more than just laughter now. It's like it's trying to achieve some kind of balance." Outside the vault, the sounds of battle grew closer. Ethan could hear Zara coordinating the defense, her voice clear and commanding even amidst the chaos. A familiar voice cut through the noise. "It's over, Collins!" Jack Howler appeared in the doorway, his face contorted with a mix of rage and desperation. "The artifact belongs to humanity, to Earth. We won't let aliens control our emotions any longer." Ethan raised his hands slowly, stepping between Howler and the artifact. "Jack, listen to me. This isn't about control. It's about understanding, connection." Howler's gun wavered slightly. "You don't know what you're dealing with, Collins. The power in that thing, it could drive out every alien on Earth. We could be free." "Free?" Ethan took a careful step forward. "Free to what, Jack? To live in isolation? To cut ourselves off from the wonders of the galaxy?" As he spoke, Ethan focused on his newfound empathic abilities. He reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind, trying to sense the emotions roiling beneath Howler's surface. "I know you're afraid," Ethan said softly. "I can feel it. The fear of the unknown, the worry that humanity will lose its identity." He took another step. "But I can also feel something else. Curiosity, wonder. The part of you that looked up at the stars as a child and dreamed of what might be out there." Howler's grip on his weapon tightened, but Ethan could see the conflict in his eyes. "You don't understand," Howler growled, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe I don't," Ethan admitted. "So help me understand. Tell me a story, Jack. Tell me about the moment you first realized the universe was bigger than you ever imagined." For a moment, the only sound was the distant echo of the battle and the soft hum of the artifact. Then, almost despite himself, Howler began to speak. "I was 10, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Camping with my dad in the mountains. No light pollution. I looked up and saw the Milky Way for the first time. Really saw it, and I felt small, terrified, but also alive, Ethan finished for him, like you were part of something greater than yourself. Howler nodded, a ghost of a smile flickering across his face at the memory. And in that moment of shared understanding, something extraordinary happened. Ethan laughed. Not a forced or nervous laugh, but a genuine expression of joy at the connection they'd made. The sound seemed to reverberate through the room, amplified by the artifact's strange power. The effect was immediate and profound. Ethan felt a wave of emotion wash over him, not just his own, but Howler's as well. He sensed the man's fear and anger, but also his long-buried sense of wonder. And he knew that Howler was experiencing the same thing, feeling Ethan's dedication, his hope, his belief in a united future. The laughter spread, rippling out from the vault and through the corridors of the UN building. Humans and aliens alike found themselves caught up in the moment, their fears and prejudices temporarily washed away by a tide of shared emotion. As the laughter died down, Ethan looked at Howler. The man's weapon had lowered, his expression one of stunned realization. What was that?" Howler asked, his voice hoarse. "The future," Ethan replied simply, "if we're brave enough to embrace it." In the vault, Lydia let out a triumphant cry. "It's stabilizing," she announced. "The artifact, it's responding to the emotional harmony we just created. I think we found the key to controlling it." As the sounds of conflict faded, replaced by confused but hopeful murmurs, Ethan knew that this was just the beginning. They had a long road ahead, explaining what had happened, dealing with the aftermath of Howler's attack, learning to harness the artifact's power responsibly. But for the first time since this crisis began, Ethan felt truly optimistic. He looked around at his team, at Lydia's excited grin, Ektor's gently waving tentacles, Zara's satisfied nod as she secured the last of Howler's men, and knew that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The artifact glowed softly, its light seeming to pulse in time with the collective heartbeat of those gathered around it. In its reflected gleam, Ethan could almost see the shape of a new future, one where laughter and understanding bridged the gaps between worlds.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.